For example, if I have an individual who's in a wheelchair, and to get to the washroom, there's 3 steps. They can't get up the steps, and for whatever reason, I can't put in a ramp. I say, no problem. Anytime you have to go to the washroom, I'll carry you up to the washroom, pull down your pants for you, let you do this, and they carry you back there. That does not respect the dignity of the individual. It doesn't respect their privacy, right? Their self-esteem. Can you imagine how embarrassing that would be? Excuse me, boss, let me go to the washroom, can you carry me up? Right? That doesn't respect the dignity. Okay? So we have to find accommodations that respect that individual's dignity. If we cannot accommodate this individual, we have to be able to legally show that we attempted to accommodate up to the point of undue hardship. We have to show that we tried to put in a ramp or put in a new bathroom, and we've got all the quotes, and we can show that these quotes are financially impossible for us to do. They would impact negatively on our business. They would cause undue hardship. So the burden of proof is on us as the employer to show we tried. We tried to accommodate this individual's needs. And finally, the most appropriate accommodation should be taken. Often there's going to be lots of options. I mean, we could put a ramp up to the bathroom, we could install a new bathroom, we could give them a bucket at their desk, right? Some of those are better options than others. If there's many equally good options, as the employer, we can choose the one that's best for us, as long as they're equally good. Okay? Giving them a bucket at the desk might be the cheapest and easiest for us, but it doesn't preserve dignity. So that's not valid. But if it's a matter of putting a ramp into that washroom or installing a new washroom, right? Well, installing a ramp is easier and it's cheaper. We can show that that makes sense. We're good. We can do that much cheaper option, as long as they're equally good. I'm going to move on to another topic entirely if there's no questions about discrimination. This one's much more fun. Harassment. Harassment, defined as unwelcome behavior that demeans, humiliates, or embarrasses a person that a reasonable person should have known would be unwelcome. I'll tell you something about harassment and we'll unpack this definition a little bit more. Oh, kind of often to give me a key to the beer cooler, and I'm feeling that way. I should have taken off on it. All right. Employers have a responsibility, a legal responsibility, to protect their employees from harassment. Yeah, harassment from superiors, harassment from coworkers, harassment from customers. If you work in a restaurant and you have a customer that's constantly pinching your butt, I mean, we've all been there, right? The employer has a legal responsibility to protect you from that harassment. Okay? It's not just coworkers, it's also from clients and customers. Okay, now let's unpack this definition. Harassment is unwelcome behavior, which means if you're dating the boss and the boss comes up behind you and starts rubbing your shoulders, well, you're dating, so it's not unwelcome. You're like, oh, it feels so good. If, however, I'm your boss and I come up behind you, and we're not dating, and I start rubbing your shoulders, you might, I don't want this, right? That's unwelcome. So if you're flirting with a coworker and they're flirting back, that's okay. That's not harassment. But if you're flirting with a coworker and they're like, please stop, right? It's unwelcome and it constitutes harassment. So you need to know if the behavior you're engaging in is welcome or not. Okay? So first thing, if it demeans, humiliates, or embarrasses, and I will talk about some of those things that happen there. The second part is that a reasonable person, this is the measuring stick that we use. Come on in. You're late. I've got a form for you. Not right now. Oh, no, a different form. No, it's just that it's a receipt kind of thing. What do they call it? Your sizing piece of paper. So before you leave, I'll do that. All right, so that a reasonable person, this is the yardstick that we use. A reasonable person would know that we shouldn't do this. Okay, now, let me give you an example. I haven't picked on you yet, I'm just in the front row. If you're working on an assignment, okay, and I come up and I see you're making a mistake in the assignment, and I touch your shoulder and say, I just want to point something out to you, just to get your attention, would a reasonable person think that that would be unwelcome? No, I'm just giving you attention. It's like somebody talking in the hallway, I touch their elbow to get their attention. Now, if you're working away and I come up and I put my hand on, I won't do it, put my hand on your back and I start rubbing it like this, saying, I just want to show you what you're doing wrong in your assignment. A reasonable person would know that you don't do that, right? So this is the yardstick we use. If a reasonable person would not do that, now I'm not saying that you need to be a reasonable person. Maybe you're a totally unreasonable person and you come up and get everybody's attention by rubbing your back. Right? It's on us to say, that makes me uncomfortable. So a reasonable person might not think, oh, sorry, you're right. That to get your attention, that's not unreasonable. If you go, you know what, I don't like being touched, please don't touch me. Now, as a reasonable person, I've been asked not to touch her. Now I know she doesn't want to be touched. If I keep doing it, I'm being unreasonable. Okay? So you see how this works. It's something that it's unwelcome. She might like me touching her elbow, so I can keep doing it. I won't have done it. I promise. Unless you're sad. No? So behavior is unwelcome. And now, a reasonable person would know that it would be unwelcome. Now, let's move on from harassment here. Here's a whole list of things that might constitute harassment other than back rubbing or touching elbows. Unwelcome remarks, slurs, jokes, taunts, or suggestions about a person's body, clothing, race, national ethnic origin, color, race, age, sex, marital status, family status, physical or mental disability, sexual orientation, part of conviction, and other personal characteristics. Largely protected characteristics. Right? Now, if me using Desmond as an example of his eyesight, that was embarrassing him, and he said, Keith, please don't use me as an example anymore, and I kept doing it, it would be harassment. Has it bothered you? No? See, okay. Now I can keep using him as an example. He probably won't sit in the front row anymore. Okay? But what I was doing was making remarks, if he didn't like it, they were unwelcome about his physical disability, his eyesight. Okay? Now we might think they're jokes, and if somebody else, I have friends that I call the most horrible names in the world. I don't even repeat them in the classroom. But then he turns around and calls me, and I mean, it's a guy thing, right? We call our friends terrible names, and they call us terrible names back. It's not unwelcome. But if it is unwelcome about these things, it's harassment. I'm going to come back and clarify that in a second. Unwelcome sexual remarks, invitations, or requests. Right? Including unwanted contact after the end of a relationship. Right? As I alluded to earlier, we were a couple. We broke up. But I really miss those tender moments. And if at work I keep coming up and can we just hold hands one more time? Right? Now that becomes sexual harassment because I'm making those requests. If they're unwelcome and they're embarrassing, they're demeaning, right? That becomes harassment. Written or verbal abuse or threats. Use your phone again in my class and I'll kick your butt. Right? I'll write that down to you. Well, that could be embarrassing. I probably embarrass you right now, so I'm probably harassing you. Right? Oh, I missed one. Display of sexually explicit, this is my favorite one. Display of sexually, not why you think. Sexually expressive for other offensive and derogatory material. I'll tell you why this is my favorite, because there's a real example and it blows my mind. Okay, I think it's 3 or 4 years ago now. It's getting to be a few years ago. 2 Air Canada pilots I think they were either fired or suspended, I can't remember now, for harassment because they put up pornographic pictures in the cockpit before they took off. See, I can't even imagine why they thought this was a good idea. But they did it, and so they displayed sexually explicit material that was unwelcome, that demeaned, embarrassed the stewards, the people that were bringing in their coffee and stuff on this long flight. Okay, this is the thing about harassment. Okay? Maybe we flirt a lot. Maybe it gets pretty sexually explicit. Right? He can be offended by what we're saying, even though we're not targeting it towards him. And if he says, guys, tone it down because it's offensive, and we keep going, a reasonable person would know, right? That's the yardstick we're knowing, that it's offending him. And we don't stop, it becomes harassment. So you don't have to directly target an individual for it to be harassment. If we're engaging in some of these behaviors that offend somebody else, right, it becomes harassment. So if I decide I'm going to put up a Playboy centerfold in my office, it's my office, so I can do what I want. Right? And somebody walks by and it offends them that I have this up in my office, and they ask me to take it down, I say, no, it's my office. It becomes harassment, right? Because I'm displaying sexually explicit materials. Alright, so that's why it's my favorite, because I have an example, not because. Right. Practical jokes that embarrass or insult somebody. Yes, you can have practical jokes, but not if they embarrass somebody. They ask you to stop, keep doing it, it becomes embarrassing and demeaning. Leering. Okay, this is a tricky one. You're in college. I mean, if you look around this room, we're a bunch of good-looking people. Okay? Let's tell the truth. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the other people in the room at times and go, right? Now, leering is different than taking an appreciative look. I can look and go, right? Now, that's fine. Leering is this. Right? Because now it becomes embarrassing and demeaning. That's why it's suggestive staring or other offensive gestures. And I'm not going to give you other offensive gestures. I'm trying to keep this a little bit light because this topic could get horrifying to talk about. Okay? So, yes, you can look at somebody and appreciate how they look, regardless of who it is that you're looking at and what you want to appreciate about them. But you don't have to say anything or go. Make it very obvious. Right. Unwelcome physical contact, like I mentioned, patting, touching. I mean, there's a big difference between coming up, touching somebody on the elbow to get their attention, or coming up behind them and giving them a good smack on the butt to get their attention. Right? Patronizing or condescending behavior. Okay, condescending behavior means talking down to somebody as if they're not as smart maybe as everybody else. Get it? I know it's a big word. Okay, that's condescending. Treating somebody differently, embarrassing them by talking down to them. Humiliating an employee in front of coworkers. We've often seen bosses who call out and, why did you, that was the stupidest thing I've ever had somebody do in my workplace, and blah, 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 embarrassing them in front of all their coworkers. Right? That's actually harassment. If you want to discipline an employee, it should be done one-on-one. And that's, even yelling and freaking out one-on-one is not ideal. Okay? It's not effective. I'll talk about that later in the course. Abuse of authority. To undermine somebody's, that's pulling rank. Okay? Decision